Hi and welcome. This is Homebody Rundown and I'm HR. I am starting a 1-month pantry challenge, and this is a video containing a lot of the items I made for week 1 of this challenge. I'm not going to show you everything that I made or that my family made. A lot of times people just figure out lunch or breakfast on their own. So this is mostly what I actually cooked or baked during that time. I am calling this a pantry challenge, but what it really means is I'm using up food that I already have in the house. That includes items in the freezer, the refrigerator, and the pantry. I will most likely buy a few things every week, mostly produce or dairy, things that youngest child who still lives at home full time might want or need, and I will show you what those items are. I don't imagine it'll be more than $10 a week. First up is a split pea soup. This is a combination of yellow and green dried peas. I order these in bulk from Azure Standard. I am going to use chopped onion and black pepper, roasted garlic, bouillon, and water. And I didn't film it, but I made pancakes this morning. Some of these will go in the freezer for later because there's only my husband and daughter at home right now eating these. I do make them kind of giant, so it's, one pancake per meal kind of serving size. I don't measure anything when I make the split pea soup. I add water and then I just have to keep watching, checking it. And I need to stir it anyway, but I can add more water if I need to. I usually just use the spoon and push some peas against the side to see if they are tender or soft enough to blend. I usually use an emulsion blender on this after, with the heat off and after it's cooled down a bit. And you want to make sure that that emulsion blender is all the way submersed because it will splatter. And if you haven't let this cool down enough, you could get burned. So be careful with that. To go along with this, I am making a grilled cheese. This is some wheat bread, nothing fancy. And this is spreadable butter that I make. So it is almost, a lot of this butter that I make is avocado oil and olive oil mixed with the butter. It is a more savory kind of butter. I had a few slices of tomato, so I thought I would add those on as well. The cheese is from the freezer. It is Havarti sliced cheese. I picked that up at Costco and it freezes really well. Here is the soup. You can see it has more of a yellow or lighter green color because of those yellow split peas. I had shredded Parmesan in the fridge, so I added that as well. This was really good. I did not add any dairy into the soup when I was making it. I have done that in the past, like add milk or cream to make it a creamier split pea soup, but I just used water this time. And I think that was probably for the best since I am pairing it with grilled cheese, and this has butter on the outside. So this is a very dairy heavy kind of sandwich. It was really good though. I really like grilled cheese when I add extra things into it. I'm not a huge fan of just plain grilled cheese. And personally, I always like to dip my sandwiches like grilled cheese into the soup. I think that's really good. Next up, I am going to cut up all of these peppers for a variety of meals and uses. I noticed a few of them were starting to get some soft spots, so I just want to go ahead and process them. I am dicing red and green peppers for a pasta sauce I want to make. Yellow and green I diced up to make a bean soup, and the rest I just sliced to eat with hummus. While I had the cutting board out, I went ahead and cut up the zucchini that were in the refrigerator. They were starting to look a little rough, and also cilantro. I did wash that really well before I went ahead and chopped that. I am making the bean soup first, so I wanted to use up this avocado. It was very, very soft. I was afraid it was going to look really nasty inside, but it looked great and it had good flavor. So that was a pleasant surprise. pan frying the zucchini with olive oil, black pepper, salt, garlic powder, onion powder. I'm not using this today, I'm just getting it cooked up. I decided to make the bean soup after I made refried beans the day before, and I did not save out any of those pinto beans in whole form, so I only have the refried bean form to put into the soup. Adding lots of spices, ancho chili, chipotle, cumin, chili powder, garlic, also green salsa. I had a little bit of tomato paste, so it'll have a lot of good flavors in it. I am not following a recipe for this, but I will link a recipe that's pretty similar and inspired this. I have followed that recipe in the past. It is for a vegetarian lentil or a tortilla soup. So it's just a good reference recipe to make sure I grab all the flavors that I want to put into any kind of bean soup that I am making. With the avocado, I am just mixing up a quick guacamole. This is cilantro, salt, lime juice, garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper. I gave it a little bit of a rough chop first and then smashing it with a spoon a bit. It doesn't need to look pretty. This is just going to get eaten right away. Keeping an eye on the zucchini while I'm doing the soup. Into this pan I have avocado oil. Oh, I forgot, I also cut up an onion. So I have onion in here with the peppers, frozen corn, added in rinsed and drained lentils. This is crushed tomatoes. I really, really like this product. It's by a brand called Jovial, and they sell them through Azure Standard, and also I can find them at my local Whole Foods store. And in both places, you can sometimes get them on sale. This is a hatch green salsa from Trader Joe's that I added in here, adding in water. I did have some reserved liquid from when I made the refried beans, and then I'm adding in the refried beans. I only added in a little bit of that refried bean liquid. While the soup is simmering, I am going to be mass producing some quesadillas for youngest child. Well, for anybody who wants to eat them. But these are the ingredients that she really likes, and I can make a whole bunch and put them into the freezer. So I had brown rice that was in the freezer that I pulled out. So I had cooked brown rice, corn, and cheese with the refried beans. I cooked a few up for her today, and the rest I can put in the freezer. The extra corn from the quesadillas I just added into the soup to make sure that gets used up. I gave it a taste and it did not have enough salt, so I used a little of the cooking liquid and added in half of a vegetarian bouillon. Also added in that fresh cilantro, which gives a lot of flavor and a brighter green color in the soup, which I think is really nice. Added in grated sharp or extra sharp cheddar cheese and some of that avocado or guacamole onto the top, and this was really good. The rest I will put into single serve containers so my husband and I can eat this for lunches this week. The zucchini were done, so into that pan I added a Beyond brand burger patty with olive oil. I'm frying that up. I used a meat masher to break it into pieces once it was soft enough. They do come out of the freezer. And once that is cooked well enough, I did add a little more olive oil here. I'm going to add in veggies and make this into a pasta sauce. So I had a little bit of onion still with the red and green peppers. Normally when I make a homemade or semi-homemade pasta sauce, I don't add peppers. It's usually just more of an olive oil, tomato type of sauce. But I wanted to add a little extra flavor this time, and I had the peppers to use up. This is roasted garlic. I had defrosted that from the freezer. It's something I make up myself. Using up the rest of this tomato paste. And then the main reason to make the sauce today was I had this jar. It was open in the refrigerator of marinara sauce, and I really wanted to use it up because I hate it when pasta sauce molds, and it was probably on its way because we just don't use it up very quickly when my oldest kids aren't home. Seasonings that I'm adding in are a little extra Italian seasoning along with roasted red pepper flakes and a tiny bit of sugar. I prefer a really thick sauce, so I let this simmer for a while. You can see it's really thick here, and I'm just going to let this cool and get it in the refrigerator. This is the next day, so here's the zucchini that I cooked yesterday, and I'm going to make what I call it a hash, just kind of when I'm using up leftovers in the refrigerator, especially if I'm adding potatoes. I just always call it a hash. I don't know why, but so here is the zucchini. And this is already well seasoned and has fat on it, so I will not need to add as much seasoning as if I was cooking this today. But since the zucchini is already cooked, everything that I'm adding in is already cooked, this is going to come together really quickly. I had some leftover diced potatoes and cooked brown rice. Here I'm adding in minced dried onion instead of using fresh onion because I only have a couple of those left. This is a lower sodium bouillon cube and the mushroom umami seasoning from Trader Joe's, garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, and a little salt. This is all the salt I'm going to need in this dish, and honestly, I probably did not need to add it. I think I was just kind of on autopilot, and I'm very used to adding a little salt to everything when I'm cooking. I am putting a lid on this to help rehydrate those dried onions. And I did add a little more oil into this pan as well. I think I forgot to mention that. That was olive oil. Now adding, this was 4 eggs minus 2 of the egg yolks just to cut the cholesterol a bit. I let those cook in the center for a couple minutes before I started stirring them around to finish cooking in the hash. I also put the lid back on to help it finish cooking more quickly, and just so you know, the lid that I use, it's not a type of lid that seals really tightly, so some of the moisture can still escape. To add a little extra something, I had this harissa in the refrigerator. This is a little bit of a spicy red pepper sauce. It is delicious. I'm only adding in a couple teaspoons. I don't even think this was tablespoons because I didn't have much left. I just wanted to add a little extra flavor into this dish. I'm going to spread it into a more even layer. Well, first I'm tasting it just to make sure it tastes good. And it did, so I'm adding on shredded sharp cheddar cheese. This is cheddar cheese that I shred in my food processor and keep in the freezer. So I had pulled this out yesterday to add on to the bean soup. Here I just added it on to the hash and put it in the oven for, under the broiler for just a minute to melt. You could let it go longer if you wanted it to get more brown and crispy, but this was very, very good. It had so much good flavor, and of course adding cheese made it taste even better. Now I'm making blueberry muffins, and I will link the inspiration recipe down below. I mean, what I'm making is pretty much that recipe, but I do modify it by adding in part whole wheat flour and extra cinnamon. And I think overall I add less sweetener, less sugar, and I replace part of the sugar with maple syrup. This is Michigan syrup. It's delicious, but it is not enough that you get a maple flavor from the syrup. This is what I consider, an old school muffin or a regular muffin recipe. It is not a cake muffin, so it does not taste like the muffins, some of the muffins that you can buy at the store that essentially taste like cake and are much sweeter. This is, I think, a lot less sweet, and you really taste the fruit more. I like to use my KitchenAid mixer with the whisk attachment to make these. I do have to stop and scrape down the sides. I do not use the mixer to add in the blueberries. These are frozen and I add them in by hand. I like to use a spatula because I just want to make sure that all the ingredients are mixed well and nothing is, like, no dry ingredients are stuck on the bottom of the mixing bowl. Just using a scoop to get these into paper liners, and I just wanted to show that the scoop is not the perfect size, so I always have to do a little adjusting to get them all about the same height before I get them in the oven. It was almost lunchtime, so while those are baking, I am going to get started on a very quick and easy lunch. This is olive oil and pasta that I had cooked a couple days before. This is a whole wheat penne that I get at Whole Foods, and it needed to get used up. Here is the sauce that I made yesterday with the peppers, and I have to say, I really liked the pepper flavor in this. The mix of the green and the red peppers was really flavorful. I definitely need to keep this in a more regular rotation. All I'm doing here is heating this up. I'm not going to add any other flavors. You could add water if you wanted this, or a little water if you wanted the sauce to be a little thinner. But this is good for us, and I am going to put cheese over the top. This is a little bit of, I had a little bit of Parmesan, shredded Parmesan, the skinnier stuff in here, in this container in the refrigerator, and then I had a small amount of mozzarella left over from another recipe, so I had just thrown it into the same container. Also adding in grated Parmesan cheese. Stirring this in just to make this a little more delicious, and here's how it looks. I added a little more Parmesan on top, so this was cheesy goodness. Now, if you wanted this to be, healthier, don't add the cheese. It really didn't need it, but I was just really feeling like cheesy pasta on this day, and it was so good. Here are the blueberry muffins. They are baked, and I use these ceramic muffin pans, and I like to use this little offset spatula to lift them out of the pan. I don't like them to sit in here very long because they will continue baking. These pans will retain heat for quite a while. Let them cool, and so this one looks like it only has blueberries on the one side. Yeah, so the blueberries are not always super well distributed, but I do take care when I am scooping them into the pans that there are at least, 2 or 3 blueberries in each of the muffins. And here you can see this one looks a lot better. Now, once these cool, I do store them in the refrigerator. It takes us a few days to get through these, and with the fresh fruit, I don't want to worry about them molding. A good reason to do a pantry challenge or a, food in our house challenge is when your freezers are full, and that's definitely the case. We have 2 of these smaller deep freezers, and they are pretty stuffed right now. I have this problem where I just keep buying stuff when it's on sale, but tonight I'm making an easy dinner. We have not bought these in a long time. These are the Kirkland. This is a Costco brand cheese pizza. Here, I just wanted to show you, this is a product of the USA, but it contains bioengineered food ingredients, and it is not vegetarian. Most of the food that I make personally is vegetarian or very close to it. This has multiple cheese products, and a lot of cheese products are not vegetarian. I like that on each individual pizza they have the baking instructions, and totally unrelated, but I just wanted to show off. Look at this beautiful color I get to see out the kitchen window. I just love it. Here's the finished product. These are really good for the price. It is less than $3 for these. They do cook directly on the oven rack, so I use tongs to pull the pizza out onto a cutting board. And I'll show you what it looks like. But yeah, for the price, especially if you are fine eating non-vegetarian foods, this is a great option. Thought I would just show the refrigerator how it looks at the end of week 1. There you can see the muffins on the left. There's still quite a bit in the drawers here. I have tofu and lots of fruit left over, some dairy products on the top shelf, and lots of cheese in the drawer. Alright, last recipe for this video is a chocolate cake. And just maybe 3 weeks ago, I made a chocolate cake from a King Arthur brand recipe, and wasn't a huge fan of that one. It wasn't perfect. I'm kind of trying to find like a good standard chocolate cake recipe that's the kind of chocolate cake that we really like. So I am trying another King Arthur recipe. This one is supposed to be more of a fudgy chocolate cake. And spoiler alert, this was so good. This one was way more what myself and my family would prefer when we get a chocolate cake. Because this was the first time I was making this recipe, I really tried to follow the recipe, and I think I did. I think I followed the instructions. I'm not sure. I really liked this one because it is more my style. I don't want to do multiple steps and like have to separate out ingredients. This was more put the dry ingredients in, mix them up, and then add in the wet ingredients and mix it up. And that is definitely my ballpark. Not putting much effort into dinner on this night. It's the rest of the cooked brown rice, frozen peas, and some fried eggs. Have cashews out so my family can put this all in one bowl and add like a stir fry sauce or a peanut sauce, or just eat it separately. This is the cake. It has a lot of bubbles. I think I probably over whisked it, and I tried to get rid of some of those bubbles before it went in the oven. You know, I let it sit out and used a spatula, but it still had a lot of bubbles in it. On the recipe website, it comes with, I think, a chocolate glaze recipe. I think it's mostly chocolate chips and butter. That may actually just be it. I decided to make a thin frosting instead because I don't have a ton of chocolate chips, plus they're really expensive, but I didn't want to use them up, so I had plenty of powdered sugar and cocoa powder. I add in some softened butter, shortening, and milk along with vanilla. Getting that spread on here, and you'll see I did not add a lot. I try to not add a lot of frosting to cake when it's just for us at home, just for my immediate family, because it's an easy way to just cut down on the amount of sugar by adding only a thin layer of frosting. This looked awesome. The crumb was really good. It held together really well. You see here a close-up view. This was so very good. We won't eat all of this right now. I'm going to put part of it in the freezer so that when the older kids are home, I can pull that out for an easy dessert. But man, I will totally keep this in the rotation. Very good recipe. And I will link that in the description. Overall, made a few good things this week, and I was happy to start a pantry challenge and, you know, really force myself to not buy more convenience foods and just use what I have. Obviously, with only 3 of us in the house this week, I don't make a huge quantity of food, and part of it tends to go in the freezer for later, but that's a nice bonus as well. Thank you so much for watching.